How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is a very anticipated video I've been waiting to make since the regular season ended, which was only 2 days ago, Sunday, as I'm recording this. It's Tuesday night. This is going to be my playoff bracket prediction video, full bracket prediction video. I'm going to release score predictions round by round and recap videos as well, round by round. But this video is going to be my overall bracket prediction. Obviously, it's likely not going to be 100%, I'm sure. I'm going to shoot for 100%, but I'm sure it's not going to be. But hopefully it is. Who knows? This regular season picks wise was not one of my better seasons. I did okay, but compared to prior years, not one of my better years. So hopefully I can redeem myself in the playoffs. I still did solid, but again, not as good as I did in past years. But yeah, I have been very excited to make this video. Playoffs this year should be absolutely crazy. One of the craziest regular seasons I've ever been a part of as a fan, especially obviously as a diehard Pats fan. This was a very pleasant, at least regular season for us. We're obviously going to have to wait and see what happens in the postseason. But I will just dive straight in here. So again, going to go over all the games, predict the bracket. Going to be fun. Going to be fun. Good amount of bracket videos and predictions that I've saw already, and it seems like everyone every year, of course, has different brackets and different winners and different Super Bowl winners and things like that. But this year, it definitely seems to be more of a variety than in years past. But here's going to be my bracket. So again, diving straight in here. So I guess I'll go round by round instead of like filling out the whole bracket on one side, like picking an AFC winner, then going over the NFC, going through that bracket. I'll just go wild card AFC, wild card NFC, then so on and so forth. Okay, so obviously the Broncos is the 1 seed, have the bye. We really should have the 1 seed, but they lost the Raiders, friggin' killed us. But first well, I guess technically time-wise it isn't, but I'll just go down the list here. So this is the Monday night game. It's going to be Steelers-Texans. So the Steelers just slipped into the postseason, obviously winning in dramatic fashion against the Ravens on the last game of the season, Sunday Night Football. The Ravens actually, not too long ago, just fired John Harbaugh. I'm a bit surprised at it. I thought they were going to keep him. I knew it was a possibility, but I'm a bit surprised by that. But that'll be a topic for another time. Steelers made it in, AFC North champions. Texans are red hot. They have not lost in quite a bit. I believe they're on a nine game win streak. They're 12, something like that. They are 12-5, red hot. Defense been on fire. The offense has been picking it up a bit. That was the reason they were losing games at the start of the year. It's picked it up a bit. So they're red hot going into the postseason. Now, actually, an interesting stat I saw is Mike Tomlin has, I forget the record off the top of my head, but it's a ridiculously good record in primetime Monday Night Football at home. And obviously that's going to be where this game is taking place. Now, again, this is one of those games, more so Panthers-Rams, where it's like, why, controversy with the team being the lower seed between the two, having the better record. Again, more so Panthers-Rams. But regardless, the game is taking place in Pittsburgh, rather. So obviously that's going to favor the Steelers a bit. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Two really good defenses, two kind of lackluster offenses. Even though, again, as I mentioned, the Texans' offense has been picking up as the year has gone on. They played really well against the Colts. Now, again, that was a bit of a weird game. The Colts, or not the Colts. The Texans pulled a lot of their starters, even though Davis Mills is very serviceable backup. They were undefeated on the year with Davis Mills. But they put up a good amount of points. They put up over 30 plus against the Texans. Yeah, they put up 30 plus points against themselves. They put up over 30 against Indy. And the Steelers offense, I mean, it looked dead in the water. Early in the game, they're down 10-0. And then from that point on, Rodgers turned into vintage Rodgers. Obviously, he had the clutch drive at the end of the game, really two clutch drives. But, classic Aaron Rodgers clutch drive. Not an Aaron Rodgers guy myself, but it's good to see, him kind of turn back the clock. I actually probably think he should come back next year. I think he's certainly playing at a level that he can, but we'll have to wait and see. Steelers, I imagine, are going to want him back regardless of how this year ends for them. But their offense is picking it up. Defense has been picking it up. It very shaky at the start of the year, up and down throughout the season, but they picked it up the past couple weeks. So again, I think it's going to be a really low scoring game. A lot of punts, a lot of field position, probably 3-and-outs for both teams. I can see it going either way. I believe the Texans are favored by 3. Let's see. I believe they're favored by they're favored by 3 points. That makes sense. Sorry, a bunch of Bleacher Report notifications on my Apple Watch here. Texans are favored by 3. I'm going to pick the Texans in this game. I have a final score prediction. Let me check my notes here. I have the Texans 20-13. Now, I could see it being even lower scoring than that. At least for the Texans, I could see them only getting like 17. Really, their ceiling, like at max, I think is like 24 points around there. Steelers, I could see them scoring a bit more than that. 13 may be a bit disrespectful, but Texans defense is something else. Again, even though Steelers offense has been picking it up a bit, this Texans defense is just unreal, especially on their win streak. The Steelers, I don't know, just against this Texans defense, they are getting Metcalf back, so obviously that'd be a bit of a boost, you would think. Even though they're picking it up, I just don't see them getting too much going in this game. I could see like a 17-20 type of game, but I'm going to go with the Texans 20-13, as I mentioned. The Steelers, again, they could steal this game. That wouldn't shock me. I feel fairly confident the Texans will win the game straight up. But the Steelers, again, it's going to be a low-scoring game. The Texans are kind of due for a slip-up. They're on a big win streak. Even though they've won their past couple games, they've been shaky in some of them. The Raiders game, they were shaky in. They nearly lost that. The Chargers game, they got some things go their way that game. They barely won that. And last week against the Colts, and again, that was a weird game because they pulled their starters at the half, but they're due for one, and they've kind of played like the past couple weeks, you can argue. And they're getting Metcalf back. The Steelers at home, primetime Monday night. Could get a bit more offense than I'm predicting, so they very well could win the game here. But I'm going to pick Houston to win this game and advance on to the divisional round. Next game, Jags-Bills. This is one of the wild card games that I think is going to be absolutely cinema to watch. I am having a really difficult time picking this game. A lot of people are as well. I see with this specific game, I see a fair split of people picking the winner. I see a decent amount of people picking the Jags, a decent amount of people picking the Bills. Now, the Jaguars, I think their key to winning the game is going to be, I don't think they're going to shut down the Bills' run game, but I think they are going to limit it, at least more than the Bills normally get in the run game. The Bills obviously are a very run-heavy team. The Jaguars, I believe, they have the top rush defense. And just talking about teams going into the playoffs in a win streak, the Jaguars are playing absolutely unreal right now. Trevor Lawrence is looking like the best he has in his pro career. They're red hot. Some people are picking the Jags to make a Super Bowl push, and that wouldn't even shock me. But they're on a big win streak, playing great. They're stopping the run well. Their defense forces a bunch of turnovers. They start off the year hot, and then they kind of hit a lull, really, since that Rams game, a couple games after that. And then since that Jacoby Myers trade, they have played phenomenal football. They're at home, so obviously that's going to be a bit of a boost for them. The Bills, again, they're definitely a false 6 seed. And what I mean by that is they're much better than a typical 6-seeded team. Really, that's the case with every team. I mean, for example, the Packers, I would argue, I mean, record-wise, they're not great, but they're a much better team than a typical 7 seed. Same with the Chargers. So the Bills, much better than a typical 6-seeded team. They won 12 games. They went 12-5. The Jags went 13-4, so they're only a game worse than the Jags record-wise. Now, this is supposed to be their year. At least it should be on paper. You get no Mahomes. Obviously, that's been the Bills' biggest hurdle the past couple of years, always losing to them in the playoffs every year. You get no Burrow. You get no Lamar. This really should be their year, you would think. By far, they're the most playoff experienced team among these teams. Well, I guess Aaron Rodgers obviously has a decent amount of playoff experience, but the Bills, again, this should be their year. And they very well could lose this game. They very well could win it. This is a borderline coin flip game for me. Another thing to note for this game is how injured is Josh Allen? Now, he was limping, pretty noticeably against Philly 2 weeks ago, and then he only played a snap against the Jets last week just to keep his start streak going. Just handed it off to James Cook. How injured is he? I obviously I think they're just gonna let him loose for the playoffs, but is his injury going to drastically, maybe not drastically, but at least change their offense a bit? Are they going to try to be even more run heavy than they are? Some short conservative passes, things like that. So the Jags, if they can really limit the Bills' run game, I think they get a really strong chance to win the game. And I could see them, and again, if Josh Allen's, not as mobile as he is with this injury, the Jags causing pressure, that could be another key to victory. The Bills' defense has not been good most of the season, and Jags' offense is on fire, so they can put up a bunch of points. There's definitely a lot of logic to pick Jacksonville in this game. This is really tough. I am really back and forth in this game. The Bills are actually favored by 1.5, so I'm sure the Jaguars are going to use that as bulletin board material. They're going to be pissed off, rightfully so, probably. I mean, I would be too. Again, this is really tough for me. I'm going to pick the Bills, though. I'm going to pick the Bills. I don't know. I can't, even though this Bills team this season, and again, they went 12-5, even though this Bills team this year isn't, it feels like they had a really good record, but it's just not the same Bills team as the past couple seasons. They don't feel like, like the one of the elite teams in the league, at least to me. Their defense been shaky all year. Josh Allen, he had a great year, but he had that slump in the middle of the year with turnovers. It feels like something's been off with the Bills this year. Even with that in mind, I just can't pick against Josh Allen in this game. I have a final score prediction of 31-27. So I basically have a shootout. And again, the Jags defense is playing great, but in this game, I think the Bills are going to really have success offensively. I think the Bills defense is actually going to play a decent game, but the Jags are going to go on a scoring burst per se. And I think it's going to be close, regardless of which team wins. I think this game's going to be close. Same with Steelers Texans. I think that'll be close, regardless of the winner. But I just can't pick against Josh Allen in the first round. I think, again, playoff experience. Trevor Lawrence has played 2 playoff games. Liam Cohen, obviously, he was there with Tampa last year in the wild card round. But the Bills, as I mentioned, most experienced playoff team in the AFC. I just can't pick against them in the first round. I would not at all be surprised if the Jags win, but I'm going to go with the Bills here to get the win, as I mentioned, 31-27. I'm just checking my notes here. So I have Texans Bills the first 2 games. Oh, here we go. Patriots Chargers. Now, again, the Chargers the 7 seed, but they're, as I mentioned earlier, they are a much better team than a typical 7 seed. They went 11-6 this year. Probably would have beat Denver if they had played their starters. And really, the only glaring hole was their offensive line. They would have probably gotten at least a couple more wins if their line wasn't as banged up as it has been. That's been their Achilles heel all year. Going into the year without Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt being in and out of the lineup the first couple weeks, and then obviously being placed on IR. Their offensive line is a significant problem, obviously. And again, but that's really their only glaring weakness, I would argue. Now, of course, they have some weaknesses if you want to look at the team as a whole, but obviously the biggest glaring weakness is the offensive line. This is a big game for my team. We went 14-3 in the regular season. The narrative is we didn't play any tough teams, so this is a big test because if we lose this game, and again, the Chargers, I would say just due to their offensive line being as injured as I wouldn't say they're one of the elite teams in the league, like a top 5 team, but I would certainly say they're one of the, I take a top 10 team in the league. Uh, so this is a good test. If we lose, it'll be that narrative's going to spiral out of control. It'll be, yep, Patriots only did as good as they did this season, so their schedule is a cakewalk. Again, we went 14-3. Yes, we had an easy schedule, but regardless of the schedule, if you win 14 out of 17 games, you are a good football team. And obviously, I think we're a very good football team. Now, maybe I'm biased as a diehard fan, but I don't know. This game, it's going to be Sunday night in Gillette. So Sunday Night Football playoff game in Gillette in the cold in January, just like the good old days when we had Brady and Bill. I'm very much looking forward to this game, and I'm very anxious for it. A lot of nerves. Could go either way. So the Chargers, I mean, I've seen some people pick them because of the playoff experience factor. Herbert is obviously due for a playoff when he's 0-2. The narrative around him is he can't win a playoff game. Now, the Jags game, I don't think was really on him. I believe he was with Keenan Allen in that game. He was missing one of his top guys. I believe it was Keenan Allen. I'm not 100% sure. And the Texans game obviously was a disaster last year. He had 4 picks, I believe, but I believe 2 of them were off his receiver's hands. He didn't play well last year, but really only one of the 2 playoff games I think he played poorly. But we're going to have to wait and see how he does in this game. I think this will be a bit of a low-scoring game. I don't think this is going to be a shootout. 2 really good defenses in the cold in Foxborough. I'm going to go with my team, of course, but if we lose this game, obviously I'm going to be pissed off and upset, but I would not at all be surprised. The Chargers, I mean, last week I feel like obviously they played a bunch of their backups. I feel like they were running a very vanilla offense, even with the backups, maybe saving some things for the playoffs, maybe specifically because if they beat us, they're going to be playing the Broncos in the second round. So probably more so that than in general saving things for the playoffs or specifically against us in the wild card. We're going to have to wait and see, though. Who knows? But yeah, the Chargers, again, they very well could win the game. Their defense alone could win them the game. Again, I don't think we're going to pop off offensively. I have us winning 24-20. I think the Chargers offense I think they're going to start off hot because this is a flaw. It's really infuriating watching this fan. Most of the team's first offensive drives, they march right down the field and score a touchdown on us. And it's so infuriating. The Chargers, I want to be surprised if they do that. And again, coming off rest, and the Chargers are more playoff experienced than us, you can say. So maybe early on we're nervous, some mental mistakes, some out of sync things like that. The Chargers, maybe they get off to a hot start and say, oh, God, here we go as Patriots fans. And then we kind of settle in as the game goes. That's kind of how the year's gone. Not so much nerves, but we kind of, at least defensively, we start off slow, offensively a bit too at times. And then as the game goes, we really find our footing. And then we take control. And a lot of the time we hammer teams after that. And we win by a decent margin. I don't think that's going to be the case here where we're going to blow them out, as I mentioned. But I think both defenses play well. Probably our defense may get off to a bad start, but I think as the game goes, we play better. Maybe the offense gets settled in, the nerves go away. I don't think, maybe really you can argue. May, I will say, obviously a diehard May guy really should win MVP. I think it's going to be Stafford. I think it should be May. May, I did notice, or not did notice, I have noticed maybe in some big game situations, he sometimes, or in big game moments, maybe he gets a bit nervous. You can say, I remember the Bills game, obviously when we were up 21-0, and at the flash forward at the end of the game, we're down 28-31. We get the ball back. We only had 1 completion on that drive, and that's not necessarily May's fault. The Bills were like just smothering everyone in coverage, even though they held Diggs on that last play, but that's okay. he kind of overshot Hollins a bit on first down, and Hollins had to make a kind of a difficult adjustment to catch the ball. So little moments like that, and that's just one example. The Baltimore game, that was a big game, primetime Sunday Night Football in Baltimore, coming off that loss to the Bills. He was early on in the game, he was a bit off with his throws. And again, Hollins had to make another adjustment. That was a bit of a high throw. But then obviously late in that game, he was just dialed in. So my point is maybe May in particular might be a bit, you know, out of sync, a bit off target. You can say hopefully that doesn't happen, obviously. But then as the game progresses, I think we find our footing. That's when we take control. The Chargers, I think, will keep it close, even if that happens. But again, they're key to winning the game. Defense alone could win them the game. Offensively, I could see them scoring more. There's definitely a bunch of paths to the Chargers winning the game, but I'm going to pick us in a close one, 24-20. Could go either way. Favored by 3.5. So that's good to see us favored in a playoff game. Okay, so there's the AFC wild card. So moving on to the NFC. So obviously Seattle is the 1 seed, is the bye. First game, Panthers-Rams. Now, again, the Panthers. Thank you, Apple Watch. I just achieved my calorie goal. Somehow sitting here talking football. Anyway, Panthers, again, an 8-9 team making the playoffs, controversial. And as I mentioned earlier, this is certainly one of those games in general where it's like, why are the Rams the road team here as a 12-win team against an 8-win team? Happened in 2022 with the Bucs and Cowboys too. It's exactly an 8-win Bucs team against a 12-win Dallas team. So similar situation a couple years later. Tampa almost won the division at 8-9 again. The Panthers did beat the Rams a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks ago. It was week 12, something like that they played, and the Panthers won. So we know anything's possible, especially this season, especially in the playoffs. Playoffs are a different breed, but the Panthers, we have evidence that they are capable of beating this team because they did so in the regular season. My thing is that I'm all right. So I'm picking the Rams. Yes, as I mentioned, the Panthers won that game, but Stafford was out of sync, had some sloppy turnovers. The Rams defense played horrible in that game. Bryce Young could not be stopped in that game. And even with all that, the Panthers narrowly escaped the win. I think they won 31-28. I don't think the Panthers are going to get that much to go in their favor this game. Now, not that they locked into it. Obviously, schematically, they did some things, but the Rams, they're a team on a mission in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to play that sloppy. I don't think the defense is going to play that bad. They're the much better team than the Panthers this season. I'm going to pick them. I have them winning this game 31-17. I could see the Rams even scoring more than that, but I think the Panthers defense will at least, get a few stops throughout this game. I could see the Panthers scoring a bit more than 17, but again, I'll say 31-17. The Panthers, if they somehow pull this upset off, I mean, a good amount of people are picking the Rams to, if not go to the Super Bowl, win it. So if the Panthers somehow upset the Rams, that's going to ruin pretty much everyone's bracket because I haven't seen a single person pick the Panthers to win this game yet. Panthers are just hot and cold. They look great one week, then bad the next week. They're going in the playoffs in a 2-game losing streak, not how you want to go in. Rams haven't been playing too great either the past couple weeks. They're going in off a win against the Cardinals. So even in that game, they were losing in the third quarter. It was close until late, then they hammered Arizona in the fourth, won by 17. But Panthers, they somehow win the game. I think it's going to have to be a similar formula to how they pulled it off in the regular season, where Bryce Young plays phenomenal. The defense forces Stafford into some uncharacteristic turnovers. I don't see it, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? We'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to go with the Rams in that one. They're favored by 10.5, so that'll be an interesting game. Eagles 49ers. This should be a good game. This is a really tough game for me. I see maybe not a lot, but a decent amount of people just kind of picking the Eagles by default with the 49ers defense being as banged up and as bad as they have been. I think this game really can go either way. I can see a bunch of different scenarios playing out in this one. I could see the Eagles defense, which that's the question, right? How is the Eagles offense going to look this postseason? It was not great in the, well, great, not even really good in the regular season outside of a couple games. The defense carried them most of the year, especially in a couple games specifically, that Lions game, that Packers game, the Bills game. So I don't think the Eagles defense is going to be able to single-handedly carry them throughout the postseason. Who knows? But I think the offense is going to have to pick it up a notch. And with the 49ers defense is injured and as bad as they've been playing lately, I know they only allowed 13 to Seattle. They allowed like a million to the Bears, but they only allowed 13 to Seattle. But Seattle moved the ball consistently for most of that game. The talent Philly has, they really could just, I don't want to say annihilate, but they really could have a really efficient game, effective offensive game. Especially they're coming off rest. That's some debate. Should they have played their starters? They probably would have beaten the Commanders with their starters, you imagine. So they would be the 2 seed instead of the Bears because the Bears lost to the Lions. But regardless, and then the Philly, the Eagles would be playing the Packers instead of the 49ers. That'd be a better draw, you can probably say. But, in the past, as far as this game, again, as I mentioned, Eagles could have a great game offensively. The 49ers are really struggling to stop the run. Saquon could go berserk this game. I could see that. Philly's defense, the 49ers being as injured as they are in this game, I do think Trent Williams is going to be back. I saw Ricky Pearsall, I don't think it's going to be. So the 49ers dealing with injuries all year. If Trent Williams is back, obviously that's going to be a big boost. But the Eagles defense, I really could see them just severely limiting the 49ers here. And there's basically, I think, more paths for the Eagles to win this game than the 49ers. So I could see the Eagles defense putting together a masterclass game, winning on that, the run game, the offense going off. The 49ers, though, so here's, I guess, no, I guess technically I had, well, seeding wise, it's an upset. The Bills are actually favorite. The 49ers are 3.5, 4-point underdogs. Let's see what the line is. 4.5-point underdogs, the 49ers are. I'm picking them to pull off the upset here. Now, am I over the moon confident about it? Not at all. I'm picking them because, as I mentioned, the Eagles' offense has been not good. And that's kind of being generous for most of the season. Even though the 49ers' offense has been bad lately, coach to coach, Saleh versus Kevin Patullo, I think the clear advantage is with Robert Saleh. Now, the talent is, especially with the 49ers injuries on the defense side of the ball, the talent is on the Eagles side. So that may be enough of a gap to overcome the coaching difference, the coaching advantage the 49ers have. But the Eagles offense hasn't been great all year. To me, I just don't think they're going to magically click it into gear in the playoffs here. 49ers Eagles is a bit of a rivalry, too, so both teams know that, I'm sure. Offensively, I am nervous because I do think the Eagles defense I mentioned could really limit this 49ers offense, but they didn't play good last week. They were on a win streak. They were absolutely steamrolling people prior to last week offensively, and they got their bad game out of the way before the playoffs. So obviously they would have preferred to have won that game. Would have had a much easier path. It's the 1 seed and the 6 seed, obviously, but it is what it is. At least they got out of the way before the playoffs. I think they're going to bounce back. I don't think they're going to go off offensively, but I just simply trust them coaching wise to score more points than the Eagles in this game. So even though there's more paths, I believe, for Philly to win the game, I'm going to go with the upset and pick the 49ers. I have them winning the game 23-20 in this one. So that's kind of my first bold prediction per se. I think most people up to this point, I mean, pretty much everyone's picking the Rams. Most people picking the Texans. Bills, Jags, that's a split. Pats, Jags, I'd probably say it's, or Pats, Jags. Pats, Chargers, I would probably say it's like 60-40, maybe like 65-35 in the Pats' favor. I really have not seen too many people picking the 49ers, but I'm going to go with them. Bold, but I'm going to go with them. Eagles, it wouldn't surprise me if they repeat as champs, but I'm picking them to lose in the first round. Bold of me, but I'm going to roll with it. Then the last wild card game, again, not time wise, but at least, in order of how I'm going on this bracket here. Bears Packers. Now, the Packers are actually favored by a 1.5 in this game. The last time I checked, let me double check, make sure that's the case. Yeah. So the Packers are actually favored. They opened, and when the opening betting lines opened for the wild card games, they were favored initially, and I'm like, there's no way they're going to be favored. I'm like, that has to be, very early on, which it was. And then I'm like, once more people start betting on the game, it'll swing the Bears favor. That's what happened. The Bears favored, I believe, like 1.5. I want to say something like that for a couple days. Well, really, I guess since yesterday, I want to say. Then I don't know when the line swung back in the Packers' favor, but swung back in their favor. So I just double checked. They're favored by a 1.5. Now, the Packers are going in the playoffs exactly how you do not want to enter the playoffs. They are on a 3-game losing streak. Now, week 18, they played a bunch of their backups, very vanilla offense. They only put up a field goal with 2 seconds at the end of the game with time expiring. I'm not really going to look too much into that game, but they got steamrolled against the Ravens. The defense looked absolutely abysmal. And then the game before that is when these teams played, and the Packers were in complete control of that game and blew it. They really should have won that game, but they choked. They blew it. I mean, this is going to be the third match between these teams in a very short time span, only a couple weeks. I believe 3 or 4 weeks these teams are playing 3 times. So that's interesting there. But yeah, Packers, the first game they outplayed Chicago. They thoroughly outplayed them. They deserved that game. The Bears almost pulled it off. They outplayed the Packers in the second half, but it obviously came up a bit short. The second game, as I mentioned, they got thoroughly outplayed. They were, and again, don't want to discredit them, but they were very fortunate to win that game, in my opinion. If Dobbs just gets the onside, I think the Packers probably win the game. And then in overtime, Malik Willis is bobbling the ball on the 4th and 1. So they certainly got some things to go in their favor. So the Packers should have swept them, is what I'm trying to get at here. Yes, they're going into the playoffs ice cold. The Bears coming off that loss to the Lions, too. Now, the Bears, the way they've been winning games, the formula, you can say, is kind of the question mark for me for them this postseason. Are they going to be able to consistently play heroic hero in the 4th quarter, come back, start off slow, get all these things going their way, get timely turnovers from the defense? Are they going to be able to consistently do that in the playoffs? That's a big question. Again, the Packers should have swept them. I think for the most part, you can say the Packers outplayed them the first 2 games. And the second game is when they didn't have Parsons. Now, again, they looked absolutely abysmal defensively against the Ravens. But the first matchup, they again, really limited the Bears, especially in the first half. And again, the Bears were changed some things up offensively, obviously, going in the second half of that game. But yeah, they obviously came up a bit short. Caleb Williams throwing that pick. This is really tough. Again, the Packers are favored. This game really can go either way. And the Packers, I mean, Jordan Love, that's another question, is he hasn't played in basically 3 weeks, because obviously he didn't play last week. He didn't play week 17, and he got injured fairly early in the second meeting between these 2 teams 3 weeks ago. So is he going to be rusty? How is he going to look? There's some questions there. The Bears, I mean, they've been injured all year defensively. Offensively, Adunze's been hurt for the better part of the back half of the year. DJ Moore's banged up, although it looks like he's going to be good to go. This game is really tough for me to predict. I see it, honestly, if I see most people picking the Bears, it's probably like a 65, 35 split is roughly what I've seen if I had to guess percentage-wise. Packers, their key to winning is, again, the Bears offense really, it's like inept, borderline inept, it looks like, for 3 quarters, and maybe not necessarily 3 quarters, but for good portions of the game. The Packers defense has held them to that and a good amount of game time between the two games. So that's going to be a key for them, I believe. Stopping the run, because the Bears, I think, are going to try to run the ball. They like to in general, especially with them seeing Derrick Henry steamroll the Packers on that Saturday game a couple weeks ago against Baltimore. So the Packers slowing down the run game, playing defense like you did the first 2 times, eliminating the Bears. Offensively, this Bears defense is not good unless they're getting turnovers for the most part. So avoiding turnovers. Schematically, I think Matt LaFleur is going to have a good game plan for this one. I think the Packers are going to get a decent amount of offense. They have a bunch of paths they can win this game. I am, however, going to pick the Bears. I'm not too confident with the pick because it could go either way, but I'm going to pick the Bears at home, close game. They pulled off the close ones all year. I think they're going to pull it off again. I think they're just going to probably pull it off in the end. I have them winning, if I can find my, there we go, 23-26. So could go either way, but I'm going to go with the Bears. Not too confident with the pick, but I'm going to go with them here. If the Packers do lose this game, Matt will force some rumors about his seat heating up. That's obviously not going to help his case. I think that would be insane for them to fire Matt LaFleur, but who knows? We're going to have to wait and see what happens. Okay, so that's my wild card round. So moving on to the divisional round. So based on my wild card predictions, I have Broncos-Bills. This is the first game. So this is another game that's going to be extremely tough to predict if it happens. The Broncos, the narrative with them all season is they're the worst 1 seed of all time. They are just scraping by, even against bottom feeders. They'll be, I guess, not necessarily a first round exit, but their first game, they'll be a first game exit, if you want to say that. Obviously, they have the bye, so they're not playing in the first round. Regardless of who they play, it's the narrative I've seen around the Broncos. And again, it will be a tough draw for them if they do end up getting the Bills, because it's the 1 seed. Again, your path is supposed to be hypothetically the easiest to get to the Super Bowl, but if you're playing the Bills in your first game, that's not going to be an ideal draw, I would argue. Any team's going to be difficult, obviously, but the Texans would be extremely difficult too if that matchup happens. The Chargers would, any team would be. So, not an ideal draw. I mean, Denver, obviously, the bye week, they're going to be extra prepared. And again, the Josh Allen injury, that's honestly, I don't think that's going to be a big, I don't know how hurt he is. I'm just guessing, but I don't think that's going to be a major factor, but who knows? The Broncos defense has been great all season. The offense has been the issue. Denver, again, they're home. They're healthier than the Bills, you can say. And again, the Josh Allen injury, I don't want to keep harping on it, but maybe it's significant. Who knows? The Broncos, if they stop the run against the Bills, that's going to be a key for them to win. The pressure, getting pressure on Josh Allen, that's going to be another key for them to win. And again, the Bills' defense not been great all year. Sean Payton coming off the bye could cook up some things. So Denver very well could win the game. Would not at all be surprised if they do. The Bills, on the other hand, I'm going to pick them. And I'm sure they would be underdogs. Actually, I wouldn't be shocked if this matchup happens. I wouldn't be surprised if they're favored. Honestly, they may be favored if this matchup happens by like a 1.5, but who knows? I'm going to pick them in possibly the upset, depending on if they would be favored or not. The seeding-wise, it'd be an upset. I'm going to pick the Bills simply because even though the Bills' defense hasn't been great all year, as I talked about a bit in the video, I think in this game, they would play a good game. They'd limit the Broncos' offense to a decent extent, and I would just simply trust the Bills' offense to outscore the Broncos' offense. I would just trust Josh Allen to outscore Bo Nix. Now, I'm not a Bo Nix hater at all, but I think Bo Nix is better than what most people give him credit for. I don't think Bo Nix is like, a top tier elite quarterback, but I don't think Bo Nix, will like completely play horrible, like shit the bed in this game completely. He'll be the reason they lose. I just don't think the Broncos offense, you know, they're barely skidding by all year. I don't think their fourth quarter heroics won them a bunch of games. I don't think that's going to be sustainable in the playoffs either. Although they will have two home games, obviously. If they had to do that on the road, fourth quarter heroics, I don't think they would stand too much of a chance. But who knows? They did do it against the Eagles earlier in the year. But yeah, this is really tough. But again, I just simply trust Josh Allen and the offense to outscore Buffalo or outscore Denver here. So I have the Bills pulling off the upset. I can find the game. I have them winning 23-20. I think the Broncos defense would give them a chance. I just don't think the offense do enough. But again, I don't think the Broncos are frauds. If the Broncos were to at least make it or maybe even win the Super Bowl, that would not surprise me. I don't think the Broncos are frauds. Yes, I'm picking them to lose their first game, but I don't think they're frauds, and it would not surprise me they won the Super Bowl. But I'll pick the Bills in that one. Okay, going down here, my next divisional round matchup would be Patriots-Texans, because of my wild card predictions, it'd be Pats-Texans. This would be a tough game. I'm nervous against the Chargers. Obviously, this comes in, playoffs as you advance further and further. I would be even more nervous against the Texans. Now, if this is the matchup, this is going to be a defensive game. The Texans offense, again, not been great all year, middle of the pack offense. Two good defenses, two top 10 defenses. Texans have, it's either one or two ranked. Their defense is ranked. I think it's one over Seattle. I think Seattle's two, but honestly, they're like interchangeable, you can say. But technically, I think rankings wise, the Texans are number one. I'm not sure, though. They're either one or two. We're top 10, the Patriots. So two good defenses. Again, the Texans offense kind of mid. Our offense is better than theirs. But the Texans defense, again, would be able to limit us in this game. I don't think by any means we would go off, score 30 plus, we're bombing it down the field, anything like that. I don't think the Texans would be getting a lot of offense either. I think this would be a hard-fought game, a lot of punts, physical football game. Houston could pull it off. Again, their defense alone could win them the game. Maybe, if we're at this point, Drake May, maybe they force them into some bad situations. They get pressure. They just shut our offense, not shut us down, but limit our offense. Their offense does have times where maybe not consistently, but like, for example, against the Chargers, they went right down the field and scored. It was on two explosive plays, but they have drives like that where they look great and they put up points early. Then they kind of stagnate out. I could see that being a path for them winning this game here. However, I would pick us at home against the Texans. We'd be at home. I think we're the better team. Again, Houston, even though they've been winning, as I mentioned, breaking down the Steelers game, the Texans been a bit shaky, you can say. So I think this may be the game that might bite them. I think we would grind it out. I have us winning. God, my notes are like I just kind of scribbled them, but should have did more organized notes here. I have us winning 17-23. So could go either way. I'm going to give us the slight edge in that one. So I have Bills Pats, an AFC Championship game. But before I break down that game, I have the divisional round in the NFC. First game, Seahawks 49ers. So we just saw this game in week 18 and the Seahawks dominated. Now, from the score, they played better than the score indicated. It felt like they won the game by like 20 instead of 10. And even though they only put up 13 points, as I mentioned earlier, they moved the ball consistently throughout that game. They're going to be coming off the bye at home. It is going to be extremely tough, regardless of what team plays them in the second round, to go into Seattle, beat a well-rested team with the defense playing as well as they have been. The offense, that's kind of the question. I have no question in my mind that the defense is going to ball out for the Seahawks in the postseason. Not necessarily Sam Darnold. A lot of people, saying Sam Darnold is going to choke. I don't know. That'll be the case. Very well may be. My concern isn't necessarily with Darnold. I just think it's the offense in general has been not too consistent lately. And again, they're moving the ball consistently against the 49ers. They only scored 13 points ultimately. They popped off in the second half against the Falcons, but it was 6-6 at halftime. They got a touchdown against the Rams to open that Thursday game. Then their offense struggled. So just consistency is kind of the issue with me. Maybe not the issue, but the question I have with Seattle this postseason. But the 49ers, if they do beat the Eagles, and again, they match up with Seattle, the 49ers, they just with all the injuries and just going on the road against the Seattle team. Now, they did split in the regular season. The 49ers actually beat them in Seattle. It was very low scoring, but it was week one. The 49ers, their injuries on the road against a well-rested Seahawks team. 49ers are going to be, they probably are exhausted now, but they're going to be even more exhausted in this game. Their physical brand of football, all the injuries, their rotations are limited, things like that. I'm going to pick Seattle, but the 49ers, I do think it will actually be more high scoring than people think. I do think it's going to look like the 49ers may pull off the upset. I don't think offensively I do think Seattle's defense in this game, I don't think they'll play as well as the Week 18 game, but I think they'll play a great game, but I think they're going to slip up a bit at times. The 49ers are going to have some really efficient drives, and it's going to be like, yep, Seattle's going to choke. That may be the narrative people are talking about throughout the game at the start. I don't think the offense is going to play great in this game, but I think as the game progresses, Seattle's going to get it, in gear as the game progresses, and I think they'll grind it out at the end. So I'm going to pick them. I have the score of this game 23-20. I think it'll be a hard-fought game, but I think in the end, Seattle will end up prevailing. Would not be shocked if this happens and the 49ers pull it off, though. Then my next NFC divisional game is Bears-Rams based on my wild card predictions. This would be an interesting game on paper. It's obviously, the Bears being at home would favor them. But I don't know, just the Rams, the Bears, again, they very well could win this. Honestly, any team can win any game this postseason. I don't think it would shock me. I guess maybe with the exception of Panthers-Rams. I would be extremely surprised if the Panthers somehow won that game and then any other postseason game they would play, not to disrespect them. But the Bears, it wouldn't surprise me they win this game at home. The defense, Stafford has had some games, again, against the Panthers I mentioned. He was a bit out of sync, turned it over the Atlanta game. The Bears, great at forcing turnovers, number one defense forcing turnovers. That would be a big key for the Bears to win the game. The Rams defense I mentioned has been slipping up a bit. So schematically, Ben Johnson could cook up a good game plan, so they could win the game. However, I am going to pick the Rams. I honestly think they might be favored in that game if they played. I just think the Rams, again, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be on a complete mission this postseason. I honestly think they save some things for the playoffs, so I think that's going to be evident. The Bears, as I mentioned earlier, the Bears defense is not too great unless they're forcing turnovers. I think as long as the Rams can play a clean game, they should get a good amount of offense in. And I just trust the Rams defense to make more stops than the Bears defense in this game. So I have the Bears fun, not Cinderella, but sort of a Cinderella season for how their franchise, their season's been going the past couple of years. Their Cinderella-like run ending here. I had the final score of this game 27-23. 27-24, I could see that. I mean, obviously my score predictions, I thought about them, but I'm not deeply researching them because I know this bracket probably isn't going to be 100% accurate anyway, but I have 27-23 Rams. Yeah, so then final four. AFC side, Bills, Patriots. So obviously this would be the third time that these two teams meet this season, playing the division. The team split. We beat them week 5 in Sunday Night Football, or excuse me, week 4 in no, it was week 5 Sunday Night Football. Now, I will say we did get a bit fortunate that game. We were a bit sloppy ourselves. The Bills with penalties and turnovers were a bit more sloppy than normal compared to their standard. We ended up winning the game. Should have swept them though. We obviously blew a 21-0 lead and a 24-7 lead at halftime against them week 15. Now, again, I'm going to sound like a homer and probably a sore loser. The refs are not the reason we lost that game, but the Bills certainly got some extremely favorable calls to go their way in that second half. We deserved to lose the game because of how bad we played in the second half, but the Bills certainly got some things to go their way. Now, obviously, this would be in Gillette. I would be interested to see who would be favored. I think, honestly, the Bills might be favored. If this happens, the odds makers always love the Bills. And the Bills, again, this should be their year. If they make it to this point, it's against an inexperienced playoff team and the Patriots prior to this season. Again, the last time they met, they came back from 21-0, 24-7. So, and they'll be on a 2-game win streak, beating the red-hot Jaguars, the number 1 seed Broncos. So both teams will have momentum going into the game, obviously, with 2 playoff wins. But you can argue the Bills, from a path standpoint, maybe have a bit more than us. Josh Allen, again, just feels like the Bills. This really should be the year. Playoff experience, quarterback. It'll be back-to-back years. They're in the AFC Championship. They killed us in the run game. Very well could happen again. Defensively, they could have a good game plan. Again, the pressure, that's a big question for the Patriots and May and company in the playoffs. So the Bills have some paths of victory here. My team, the Patriots, though, we also have some paths of victory. One thing to note that not a lot of people, at least outside of New England, a good amount of people in New England, the New England area, talking about this Patriots fans. Yes, the Bills killed us in the run game, specifically James Cook, and Josh Allen killed us too in some critical passing situations in the second half in that game. But we didn't have Milton Williams or Robert Spillane. Milton Williams is our best run stuffer on the line, and then secondary level, Spillane at linebacker is also significantly helping improve our run game. Jack Gibbons, love him, but he significantly struggled in that game. And our run defense has been miles better with those 2 guys in the lineup compared to the games that they missed. We didn't allow a 50-yard rusher with those 2 guys in the lineup. The second they go out of the lineup, I think literally every game they weren't in the lineup, we allowed over a 50-yard rusher. It might have been 100 yards almost every game. Maybe it was every game. So those guys being back would be huge for us. Again, I feel like, honestly, us losing the game to the Bills, especially in the fashion that we did, as I mentioned, blowing a 21-0 lead, a 24-7 lead, the Bills get some favorable things going there with officiating. That might be better for us because let's say we had came back and won that game. Not that I don't think this would have been the case, especially with Vrabel as the head coach, but maybe we would have been like, all right, well, we beat them twice. We know we're capable of beating them. Let's just kind of stick to the things we did the first 2 times because it worked, because we beat them twice, and maybe overlook some things a little bit. Again, not the case to the extent with Vrabel as our head coach that it might be with some other head coaches. Vrabel's going to have us locked in, ready to go the same amount preparation-wise, regardless of the opponent or previous results, but maybe that's good. It's just human nature and the players talked about it after the game, to kind of overlook some things when you're winning. So I do think ultimately, if this happens, this rematch may be more beneficial that we lost the game in week 15 than if we won it. But offensively, I think the Bills' run defense, pass defense, they're good. Their run defense has been awful all year. Henderson had 2 explosive touchdown runs in that game. I think we try to gash in the run game, get them going the play-action game. This game very well could go either way. This would certainly make me the most nervous. I honestly would be more nervous playing the Bills, I believe, than the Broncos. Obviously, if we made it to the AFC Championship and the Broncos did, we would be at Denver. That game would make me nervous, but I think just playing the Bills honestly maybe make me more nervous, but I don't know. I am going to pick my beloved Patriots to win the AFC, get to the Super Bowl. Now, yes, obviously I'm a fan, so you can say I'm biased. And again, even though I'm picking us to go to the Super Bowl, I would not at all be surprised if we lose to the Chargers, to the Texans. Now, if the Steelers beat the Texans and we play them, I would feel really confident against the Steelers. Yes, I know they beat us early in the regular season, but I highly doubt we would turn over 5 times. We really handed them that game. I feel like outplayed them. If we play the Jaguars, that would certainly make me more nervous than the Steelers. But that could go either way. I wouldn't be shocked if we lose that game, but I'd pick us. And Denver, that if we play them, that could go either way. This game could go either way. I would not at all be surprised if we lose to any team in the playoffs except for the Steelers. No offense to them. But I'm picking us to go to the Super Bowl. So there is my AFC bracket. On the NFC side, Seattle and the Rams is my NFC championship match. I see game rather. I see a lot of people picking this as their NFC championship game. Makes sense. All Seattle has to do to get to this point is just win one game. Now, obviously, it's easier said than done, but they just win a game, a home playoff game. They're in the NFC championship game and hosting it. The Rams are going to have to win 2 road playoff games. The only way they can possibly host the NFC championship game is if the Packers or 49ers somehow advance, but likely, obviously, they're not going to host it. Now, these teams split in the regular season. Now, the first game was interesting because the Rams, I mean, they turned Darnold over a million times that game, and they're in control, and Seattle still nearly won the game. They outplayed them that game without the turnovers. So it felt like Seattle very easily could have won that game, even though the Rams were controlling it, getting turnover after turnover on Darnold. The second game, the Rams were in complete control and blew it. The defense was, again, I guess they're Darnold's kryptonite. They're forcing a bunch of turnovers on him again. To the 3rd straight game, dating back to the wild card matchup last year when Darnold was with the Vikings. So the Rams defense, I guess, is his kryptonite. So that game, they're forcing the turnovers. And then Rashid Shaheed got that kickoff return the punt return touchdown, rather. That just ignited momentum into Seattle. They tied the game up and won in overtime in the end. So Seattle has found a wave of momentum and rode it to the end of that game. So it felt like they won the game that they got outplayed most of, and the Rams won the game that Seattle was kind of outplaying them minus the turnovers. Now I know you can't say, well, you can just take away turnovers, but that's just kind of how I'm thinking about it. Now, this would be a great game. At least it should be on paper. Both the games went down to the wire. They split. You can argue both teams should have, you can argue Seattle should have won both games. The Rams should have won both games. I think more so the Rams. I think the Rams completely blew that game. And no Adams in that game, too. That's something important to mention. Stafford still went off in that game, had over 400 yards. Even though they lost, they put up a bunch of points, 30 plus. So this would be a really good game on paper. Now, Seattle at home, if Darnold can avoid the turnovers, that's going to be a big key for them to win the game here. And again, the Rams defense has been slacking a bit. You can argue the past couple weeks. If the Seahawks offense can kind of just be like average, put up like 20, somewhere in the lower 20s, their defense I think could play well enough for them to win the game here. Seattle, again, they are streaky offensively. They find a momentum wave, ride it. That could be their key to winning the game here. Put up a bunch of points offensively from the momentum wave. The Rams, again, I don't mean to keep repeating myself here, but the Rams, I do kind of feel like it's their year. I think offensively, they would pick up where they left off, honestly, against Seattle in that second game, the Thursday night game, presumably with Adams back. The defense, again, they're Darnold's kryptonite. I don't think they would necessarily force a bunch of turnovers, but with Seattle's offense being the thing that I'm a bit concerned about consistency-wise, that is honestly going to be the key for the Rams here. If their defense can kind of just play similar to how they have been against Darnold the past couple games. The offense picks up where they left off. This game is tough to pick. Could go either way. I am ultimately going to go with the Rams, though. I have the Rams winning this game 26-23. I think, again, could go either way, but I would go with the Rams in that one. Tough game to pick, though. By the way, I don't think I gave my score prediction for Bills Pats. I picked us 27-24. I almost said 20. I originally had 26-24, and then 23-26. Then I said 24-26. Then I changed it to 24-27. But yeah, that's my score prediction for those two games. So ultimately, I have the Patriots coming out of the AFC. Now I know I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for it, but I have the Patriots coming out of the AFC, the Rams coming out of the NFC. Now, this Super Bowl matchup has actually been picked in a decent amount of brackets, and I'm surprised. A decent amount of brackets have the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Obviously, I'm very pleasantly surprised to see that, but a lot of brackets have the Rams. Now, again, it's going to be more difficult for them as the 5 seed, but just something about it, they're even during the year, I feel decent. I feel fairly confident that the Rams are going to make it. I feel more confident the Rams are going to make it than my team. If you can say that. I had the Rams in the Super Bowl in my preseason predictions. I had them losing to the Ravens. So obviously that's not going to happen because the Ravens didn't even make it. But at least, I got the Rams in my bracket here. I'm keeping that consistent, I guess, with my preseason predictions. Okay, so my Super Bowl matchup. Patriots, Rams. Now, this to me, going into the game, would be similar vibes to Bengals Rams a couple years ago, where the Rams are the better team, the more talented team. They would certainly be favored, I imagine, if this game happened. Should win the game. Most people probably picking them to win the game. And the people that are picking the Patriots are kind of picking them because of the underdog mentality, the Cinderella run the whole season and the playoffs, you can say. So I think it would be similar vibes to that game. The Rams really should win the game as I just mentioned, because they're more talented. I believe that they have an overall better roster by a decent margin. They have more playoff experience than us. They have a similar roster to, well, at least, some guys on actually a decent amount of turnover from the Super Bowl that they won a couple years ago, but they still have McVay and Stafford there. Obviously, those are the big two. Devontae Adams, bunch of playoff experience. Obviously, this would be his first Super Bowl if he makes it. But the Rams, from a talent standpoint, really should win the game, you could say. Offensively, I could see McVay cooking up a great game plan, them having a really good game offensively against us. Defensively, I could see the Rams playing really well defensively. The Patriots, if they pull it off somehow, they get to this point, pull it off, I think May and the offense are going to have to put up around like 24 at minimum, 23 at minimum, I would say. More probably 24, you can say. In all likelihood, though, probably near 30. I would not be I'd be a bit surprised if either team scored more than 30. Probably more so us than the Rams. The Rams could score more than 30 if this game happens. But the Patriots, they win the game. I think they're going to have to put up a good amount of points because I think Stafford and McVay are going to cook up a good game plan. The talent they have, I think they're going to be putting up a good amount of points. Schematically, though, I think we're capable of it. So, who do I ultimately have winning the Super Bowl? Now, again, people are probably going to give me shit for having the Patriots in the Super Bowl, probably less so the Rams, but having the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And if that's the case, I'm sure they're going to give me even more shit for this because why not? I'm going to pick my team to win it all. And again, I would not be confident with us winning this game. I'd be extremely nervous. I think if this Super Bowl happens, the way things stand now, I believe the Rams would be more likely to win the game. But honestly, if I'm picking us to make it to this point, I think we get a decent chance. As I mentioned, I think it's going to be similar to the Bengals Rams Super Bowl, and I know that was lower scoring than I'm kind of talking about here. I believe the Rams won 24 to or 20. What is it? 20 to 24, or 20 to 23, I believe the final score was. So obviously OBJ got hurt in that game. Otherwise, they probably would have put up more points. But the Bengals nearly won that game. It was going to be 4th and goal, but the Bengals got called. Logan Wilson did for an extremely questionable call late in the game there. So I don't know. The Rams, they won a game that, narrowly, that they probably, from a talent basis, should have won more. By more, you can say. I don't want to say they got fortunate in that game, but squeaked by a game they could, should have won convincingly. You can say maybe they're due. They won one, maybe they're due for a loss in a similar situation. So if we're going to make it to this point, I think we could pull it off. I think we could just outdo Stafford and company offensively from our offense. Defensively, even though the Rams I do think would have a good game offensively, I do think defensively we are good at settling in as the game goes. Now offensively, I honestly think they probably go down the field and score a touchdown probably with the way our defense starts drives this game, especially 2 weeks to prepare for the Super Bowl. McVay and Stafford, they probably go right down the field and score a touchdown. But who knows? I guess the one game we've had 2 weeks to prepare for in the season, we did stop the Bills on the first drive in Week 15, but who knows? But I was just going to say something else, and I'm blanking here. Yes, that was that. Now I remember. The Rams, they kind of have a tendency to stall out too, and it's happened the past couple weeks when they've lost a couple games. So maybe that happens here. And if we get to this point, our confidence, again, the Super Bowl is a different breed than the playoff. Well, it's part of the playoffs, but not playoff games that aren't the Super Bowl. So maybe the nerves, that could be a question too. But I think if we get to this point, I think we're just going to play like the team we have most of the season. So I'm going to pick us. I have us winning 27 to 24. I had 23 to 26 originally, but I'm like, I upped it to 24 to 27. And then my tiebreaker here, how many total points will be scored. So if you add up all my score predictions, my number is 602 total points scored in the playoffs this year. So, yeah, that is my bracket. Now, again, just a quick overview. If you just look at, you just look at the picture of this, yeah, you have the Patriots as Super Bowl champions. Again, probably just going to be like, well, obviously he's a Patriots fan. He's going to pick them to go that way. They're going to, they very well could lose the first game. Yes, I'm very aware of that. And again, I would not be surprised if we lose the first game, the second game, the third game, or if we make it to the Super Bowl, we lose. As a matter of fact, if we make it to the Super Bowl, as I mentioned, I think we're more likely to lose than win it, especially if it's the Rams. But I don't know. I would pick us. I think I did a decent job, logically picking us in this game, but I don't know. I would not be surprised if we lose the first game. I just don't want to seem like, I'm only picking us to make it to this point because I'm a Patriots fan and I'm just going to go with my team no matter what. It's not like that. If we were to lose, I do think we would lose a game, I would pick the other team. I wouldn't just pick us and give us if it's 50-50, I wouldn't just give us the edge because I'm a fan of the team. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm honestly like I said, fairly confident that the Rams will win the NFC. I think if they don't win it, it'll be Seattle. Obviously, with my bracket, that'll be how it pans out. If Seattle doesn't win it, I really do think it'll be either the Rams or the Seahawks. But if it's not one of those two teams, probably the Eagles, honestly. And again, really, like I said, I would not be surprised if any team, okay, actually, well, so let me break this into two levels. I would not be surprised if the Rams, Patriots, Seahawks, Bills, Broncos, even the Texans, or so that's the AFC. So from the AFC side, I would not be surprised if Denver, Buffalo, the Patriots, the Texans, or okay, so yeah, Texans, Patriots, Bills, Broncos. Those four teams, if any of them win the Super Bowl, would not at all be surprised. From the NFC side, if the Rams, Seahawks, Eagles, or honestly, just those three teams, I would be surprised if it's anyone else. If the I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears make it to the NFC Championship game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers beat Bears at all. I wouldn't be if the Packers do beat the Bears. I really think they'd have a tough time against the Seattle defense. And again, the Eagles, even though I'm picking them to lose round one, I wouldn't be shocked if they win the Super Bowl. Even though I'm picking them to lose in the first round, it could be an ugly, path for them where all year, like I mentioned earlier, their defense kind of carries them. The offense, it's ugly. If they keep winning, could see that. Panthers, I would be shocked if they somehow beat the Rams. No disrespect. Steelers, it wouldn't shock me if they beat the Texans, but if the Steelers somehow make it to the AFC Championship, that would shock me. If they somehow make it to the Super Bowl, that would even further shock me. But honestly, who the hell knows the way this season has gone with all the upsets and storylines, teams, underdog teams overseeing expectations like the Pats and Jags, it's teams and the Broncos too. Juggernaut teams like the Chiefs, obviously the Ravens aren't even making it. So who the hell knows the way this season's gone? They're really, again, I don't think, I think it's a stretch. Again, I don't think it's a, I'm just trying to figure out how to word it here. I wouldn't be shocked if, so I'm going to go back when I said, if any team makes a run to the Super Bowl besides the Panthers and Steelers, it would not shock me. It would surprise me if the Jags did, the Chargers, the Bears, and the Packers and 49ers. But the rest of the teams would not surprise me at all. So, again, I plan on doing a round by round score predictions video because I'm sure I'm going to do one for the wild card, even though I gave my score predictions here. I'm sure my bracket's going to be off. Hopefully not. Obviously, that's the goal, but I'm sure it'll be off. So I'm going to do a score predictions and recap video for each round. So obviously that's a couple weeks in advance. So, but be on the lookout for those videos if you're interested. But as far as this one, I know it was a longer video. I didn't think it was going to be that long. I just kind of rambled as long as I wanted to for each game here. So a bit of a longer video. I don't even know how long I've been talking. It's going to be close to an hour at least. But as far as this video, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Feel free to comment your predictions, slander me in the comments for my picks. Talk to me if you agree, disagree, whatever you're feeling. I'm open to it. Feel free to comment whatever. Call me an idiot. I don't care. Who knows this season? Who the hell is going to win it? But yeah, as far as this video, I'm going to wrap it up here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in. Take it easy. I plan on making a bunch of more playoff content too, even before the wild card round starts. Dylan and I are going to try to record a podcast episodes. Be on the lookout for that. But I'm going to wrap this one up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed. Take it easy. And as always, especially as we gear up for the playoffs, go Pats.